What is up, everybody? Welcome back to Real Estate Uncensored. It's Matt Johnson here. I've got Gene, the evil bald ninja Volpe, is here with me. Greg is not able to be with us. We're recording this the day after a holiday. I think Greg has got caught up spending time with his family, wasn't able to get away to join us. So we persevere, and we've got Brian Bogart with us today, and we're talking about money mindset. So if you enjoyed the episodes that we've done with Chris Noggle, where we talk about how do you approach money, what do you do with it, how do you get better at not just bring it into your life by doing more deals, but how do you take the money that you're bringing in through deals and through commissions and things like that, and how do you then deploy it to have a better lifestyle and set yourself up for the future so that you're not stuck on the hamster wheel. And Brian's a super interesting guy with a great background. I've done another podcast episode outside of this with him, and so I know a little bit about his background, and I thought he'd be amazing to come on the show. Before we bring Brian in, Gene Volpe, what's up today?
Matt Johnson, it's amazing to see your face. I'm good. I could go two ways here. Do you want me to start with the stuff that I'm agitated about, or the stuff that I have gratitude about? Which way do you want me to go?
Let's balance it out. Give me something you're grateful for before we go into what grinds your gears.
I am grateful for my Real Estate Uncensored brothers because I got a nice little package delivery this past week. It is a new upgraded microphone that I'm excited to hear myself on. Actually, I'm not. I hate my own voice. You know how that goes. But that leads right into what I'm aggravated about. Pre-show, I can't get that damn thing to connect to my laptop. So I'm on the old mic. I'm on the ATR. So we're going to persevere today. And I think hopefully next week when we do our new show, maybe I'll have the new mic.
That's right. No good deed goes unpunished.
Right. But I'm grateful.
All right. And then Brian, how are you today? Maybe give us something you're grateful for.
I am doing fabulous. What am I grateful for? You know what? I like the holiday season. I know some people, get bent out of shape. It's too over commercialized, but I think it offers a fantastic opportunity to do some introspection, to connect with people that you've been forgetting about or procrastinating about. So I'm kind of excited that, you guys down my American friends, you guys are having Thanksgiving this weekend, and then we'll be kicking off the Christmas season coming into December. So I'm grateful for the time of year. I'm up in Canada. There's little snowflakes falling outside my window. So it's starting to look a lot like Christmas.
I was going to say, if the audience couldn't tell, you do have just a little faint hint that you're not quite from around here.
What are you talking about?
All right. So Brian, you're an ex corporate guy, spent way too many months and years stuck in a cubicle. You got out of that rat race and got into investing. I'm just curious, when you run across somebody today, what do you tell them that you do?
I tell them basically that I am a wealth coach. And so what I mean by that is, everything that I'm looking to do, you and I talked about this earlier, my purpose is freedom and creating more freedom. Yeah. But I am very clear in Maslow's hierarchy that, in order to get those base levels covered, you've got to have financial freedom. And so rather than being in that rat race and all that, it should be about creating abundance, about creating wealth. So that's why I call myself a wealth coach.
Love it. And so take me back a little bit, just to give the audience a sense of kind of where you've come from. So you come from the investing world. You were working a corporate job. Just give us kind of the 2-minute background of how did you break out? How did you get out of the rat race and get into investing full time?
I always love to use my Matrix metaphor. So I was very much Mr. Anderson, right? Working the cubicle life. I had a great life. Don't get me wrong. A lot of people looked at me and were envious of it, but it wasn't a fit for me. I didn't feel satisfied. And I was, working in a cubicle farm. And my cubicle neighbor and I used to joke about, hey, how's your tunnel out of prison coming? Like, the guy on
Right.
Shawshank Redemption with the spoon. So we used to joke about this. And then one day I said to him, so what is your tunnel out of prison anyway? And we wound up going for lunch, and I found out he was a real estate investor. And so at that moment, I met my Morpheus. Over the next couple of years, I became Neo, right? Being able to move in and out of the matrix, left the corporate world about 4 years later because of what him and I and some other people were doing in real estate investing. And then fast forward a decade later, I became Morpheus and completed the journey by opening up my own coaching practice. People were like, why aren't you teaching people what to do in terms of what you've accomplished in your life? I was like, okay, let's start to do that. So yeah, became Morpheus, opened up my coaching business, Next Level Success Coaching. And, I still invest, but I'm not a day trader. So that's not a full-time gig. So I pass on what I've learned in the last 17 years of investing to people who want to find out and take the red pill and come down the rabbit hole.
Love it. And let's start just with some, I guess, myths and misperceptions. What are some of the common things? Let's start with just one. What's one of the most common mindset issues that you run into people with money, regardless of their background? They haven't got into investing necessarily. They're just, let's say you run into the average person on the street. What's one of their biggest struggles?
I would say 99% of the people that I wind up speaking to, when I dig a little bit more into their background, the message that just about everybody got as a kid was work hard and keep your head down and be happy getting by. Those were, and that somehow, and eventually there's going to be this payoff someday in the future. Like if you're a good little boy or a good little girl, do what you're supposed to do, work hard, eventually there's going to be this payoff in the future. And yet when I ask those people, so did your parents ever get that payoff in the future? And again, 8 out of 10 of them will say, no, they clawed and scratched for their entire life and eventually died poor or always struggling.
Yeah. Yeah. I know mine for sure did. Gene, I don't know much about your parents, but yeah, I mean, mine are, that was definitely our mentality. We had some religious stuff in there too, where the particular strain of religion we grew up with was very much the mentality that if you were really on the straight and narrow, it was basically like taking a vow of poverty. And that's not everybody, but we do have a pretty healthy, I don't know what we call like the Protestant work ethic, which is just, you just work. You don't expect a ton. You certainly don't look for shortcuts, because shortcuts are a tool of the devil. There's virtue in just plodding away and working hard. So that's taken some work to kind of break out of that. It's a hard thing because money does not obey the Protestant work ethic.
Nope. And I actually, it's interesting you mentioned religion. Personally, I believe that Protestant work ethic was actually adopted from the original. You go back hundreds of years. What was what the religions were teaching? Well, you stay in your lane and I'm the landowner, you're going to work the land, don't ask for anything, but eventually one day you're going to go to heaven, right? Then you're going to have everything you ever imagined. And then that just got translated into keep your head down, work hard, eventually there'll be a payoff someday in the future. It's basically the same model. They just adjusted it when we started to move away to a more secular society, right?
That's really interesting. So retirement is our version of it's a secular heaven, going to Arizona and playing golf.
And hey, along those lines, every religion on the planet talks about heaven being basically the definition of abundance. So if whatever version of God works for you believes that abundance is your birthright, why do I have to wait until after I'm dead? Can't I have abundance and wealth and all that sort of stuff now? And why am I supposed to feel ashamed or guilty or any of this sort of stuff? I like to point out that the only creature on the planet that, given the right environment, won't thrive and try to grow and try to fill its space with abundance is human beings. If you plant plants and water them and give them fertilizer, they will take over your garden. If you take a herd of deer and give them all the food and everything they need in space, they will proliferate like crazy. Every single organism on the planet is striving for abundance, and human beings are the only ones that feel guilty. I have yet to see one of my house plants feel shame or guilt about growing because they see one of the other plants not doing as well. Right now, that doesn't mean that you should that one plant should step on the other, or that a human being should get their abundance at the expense of someone else. That's not what I'm talking about, right? We know there's a lot of that going on, but when it's done where win-win, where everybody survives, like in a forest or in a natural surrounding where there's a symbiotic state that gets created. Abundance is everybody's birthright. Wealth is everybody's birthright, and it's built into every single religion on the planet.
Yeah, that's interesting. I love that analogy. That's really fantastic. Let's say you absorb that and you come to the point where you agree with that and you think, okay, great. So it doesn't have to be like that. I don't have to push off the reward until the end, whether that's retirement or heaven or whatever. You go, okay, so I should be able to have abundance right now. Let's say you mentally agree with that, you start to absorb it, but then you actually get into the world of making money, right? Let's say you start a business or you start investing, which is essentially the same thing, right? You're getting into the world where your actions can have wildly different results, and you can generate massive profit, massive loss, and anything in between. when somebody gets into that environment, we still have all sorts of issues about and hangups about money. So how do we start to overcome some of those that are, even once we get out of the rat race and we get into the area where we can make a lot of money, people still have lots and lots of hangups over it? What are some of the things that you've noticed?
Well, when I got into this coaching business, I believed that the number one thing that was sort of there for people and what was blocking them or causing them to, self-sabotage was a lack of data and information. And that's how when I started my coaching business, that was really my emphasis. Oh, if I give you data and information and, and help you figure out how to do this, then everybody will be able to take advantage of it. And then as I started to work with more and more clients, I found out how absolutely wrong I was. It wasn't a lack of data was definitely part of it, but it reminds me of the diet and the health industry. Do we have a lack of data when it comes to diets and health and exercise? No, right? Every year there's a gazillion new books and programs and all this sort of stuff. Figuring out which one can be a little bit confusing, but there is certainly not a shortage of data. But what's going on there is the mindset aspect of it. And then you dig a little deeper. And I actually really used to like the show The Biggest Loser because of this. And I watched it for this reason alone. It wasn't about the lack of data. It was the shame and guilt and judgment that people were carrying about themselves and what had happened in their life that prevented them. And this is what I observed in the world of money and finance. I have spoken to people who are on the verge of bankruptcy and people who are wildly successful in the eyes of others. And almost to a person, they will tell me that they suffer from guilt and shame about mistakes they've made. They should be better off. They should know how to do this, blah, 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 whatever. And that's actually what's preventing so many people. So, I mean, a takeaway right now for your audience, you want to pay attention to this, especially, as the holidays are coming up, is pay attention to how many times either you say out loud or a voice in your head where you judge yourself around money and finances. And just, the shoulds, I should be better, the shouldn't, I shouldn't be doing this, I shouldn't be spending. People are shoulding all over themselves and then wondering why they don't, they're not moving forward with their financial goals. So I'm absolving the audience at this point right now, right? You now have permission from an actual money and wealth coach to let go of that guilt and shame about money and finances. And the best time to plant an oak tree was 20 years ago. The second best time is today. So start taking action, doing things right now. Let go of that guilt and shame bullshit because it is not helping you. It is just hurting you.
That is really interesting. Gene,
yeah,
let me pitch a question to you, Gene. I'm curious.
Yeah.
Just for yourself. Because I think Brian gave me the answer to this, but I still want to pitch the question out, and then Brian, I want to get your feedback on what Gene says. Gene, if you could reach into your own head and you could just change any particular belief or hang up about money and wealth, what would you, if you could just switch that with just a snap of the fingers, reach into your own brain and just kind of wipe out one myth or hang up or something like that about money? Do you have one that comes to mind?
I do, but I feel like I actually have overcome this. This was a battle that I fought for years. And it's that it's all relative, right? Wealth to me looks and smells different and feels different than it is to you. Right. So, I think a lot of us gauge our successfulness and where we fit in society by the amount of zeros in the bank account. And I always say to people, like somebody, I'll even have conversations with my kids and we'll go, well, how does somebody live off of $35,000 a year? Like, how does that work? Right. I'm always trying to get more. And I'm trying to, like, that's my mind game is to leave a legacy for them. Matt, you and I have had conversations about this before. It's like, I want to have a nest egg for them to make their lives easier. Right. But for somebody that's making $35,000 a year, maybe they're renting a small apartment. They don't need a big giant house. Maybe they take public transportation 3 times a week and they don't need a Maserati. Like, there's ways to do that. And maybe that person is happier than I am. Like, I think it's wealth and this thing about money is completely relative to you as a person and where you live in your space and time continuum. And I think it's hard. I guess maybe I don't know if it's a myth, but one thing I'd like to expel is people's judgment on others based off of the amount of zeros they have. Does that make sense?
in the sense of like looking at people that are much wealthier than they are, or wealthier in a particular way, and then judging them negatively.
Well, maybe the definition of wealth needs to change. What are you wealthy in? I'm happy with myself. I'm happy with the way my kids are. I'm happy with the decisions I make. How much money to make? I don't work. I'm a stay-at-home dad, right? Like, but I'm wealthy. I go back a little bit when I left my corporate job at Verizon. A lot of what Brian's saying really hits home for me because I took that same path. I was in the cubicle
Yep.
and I wasn't looking for a way out. I think the way out found me, and I struggled through that. But I don't even know where I was going with that. I just feel like wealth as a definition, that's where I was going.
Right.
Wealth as a definition has to be redefined, right? Like, Matt, are you wealthy? I would ask that question and you would go, of course I am. But does that necessarily mean you have $8 million? Or does that mean that Matt finishes his day at 10 a.m. every single day? Right. Like, I've always said that to you. I would be dead. I'd kill myself and jump off a bridge. I just need something to focus on. But I envy that.
First of all, it's noon. It's not 10 a.m. It's noon. But
noon.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay.
You're not far off, though. You're not far off.
But that's Brian, that to me is your definition of wealthy is a little bit different than maybe mine is.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So Brian, we were talking about this before we hit record. There are people in the world that have a different value at the top of their own hierarchy, right? So you and I are the same in the sense that freedom is our number one value. Now, you have, I think you have a wife and kids, if I remember right.
Nope.
No. Okay. Gene does, right? So you're definitely, like, you and I both value freedom, but differently, right? Your idea of freedom is different from mine because, Gene, your idea of freedom might include, a vacation house that you go to that you own, because then it's helpful to know that you're always going to the same place if you're going to drag kids along there. Like, you need a bigger vehicle than I do because you've got kids that have to cram in the back. Like, there's just like the expression of all of it is different. But Brian, I think what we can talk about, just to finish things out here, is the way that we value wealth definitely needs to change. And it's extremely personal because you've got financial freedom, like you talked about. Then you've got time, which I have an abundance of. And then you've got location freedom as well, if you want it, right? Some people don't value that. Like, it's not even on their radar. But I know for a lot of people in real estate, they're locked into a location. So no matter how much time and money they get, they can't leave their local business. And at some point, even that becomes restrictive. And so if you have all three of those freedoms, that's a much different definition of wealth than somebody who stays in one place and gets really, really money wealthy off of their investments. And that's an expression that each of us has to change for ourselves.
There's about a half a dozen things in what you and Gene just talked about that we could unpack over the next 3 hours. I love it. I love these types of conversations. So a couple of highlights. First of all, some of the happiest people that I've encountered in my life lived in third world countries and had basically nothing. Like you look at the rates of depression in, the US or Canada versus, some of these where the kids are just running around happy and the people are free. And
Yeah, you're still with me, Gene?
I am. Yep.
Okay.
Can you guys hear me?
Yep. It just came back.
Can you hear me?
Yep. Oh. Just got you back now.
Okay, there we go. There must be woodpeckers on the lines. So everybody's definition of wealth is absolutely different and very unique. And that's why in all the stuff I do with my clients, I always start with, what are your goals? What are your objectives? What are you trying to accomplish in your life? There's no such thing as a good investment. It's whether it's a good investment for you to try to accomplish your goals, right? But something interesting that Gene said in what he when he was sharing, he said, maybe these people, they don't need a giant house, they don't need a Maserati. We're so focused on need, though. What if we were able to change that dynamic to what we wanted, right? Because that's, I find, what winds up happening. And when I started in this journey, when I first met the guy sitting beside, or him and I started talking about this sort of idea, he said to me, what's your end goal for doing this? Like, as we're getting into this real estate and acquiring these properties, what do you want to accomplish? And it actually took me aback for a second. And I was like, well, I don't know. How much money do I want? And I'd never even taken the time to stop and think about what freedom would look like for me. And he said, how about $1 million? And this was like, 17, 18 years ago when $1 million actually was still a sizable amount of money. And my direct response was, well, I don't need $1 million. I'm not an actor or a sports athlete or something. I don't need that. And that's where him and I started to get into this conversation about need, and that's Maslow's bottom hierarchy. Once that satisfies, then you can move up a level. And you have to go through those other levels, get the needs satisfied in order to move towards things like pursuing enlightenment, pursuing charity, all this sort of other stuff. So what if for you, wealth just meant, as you said, Matt, you now have control over your time? Because it wasn't that I hated what I did. It was I hated that I had to get up and get on the bus at a certain point. I had to be at my cubicle by a certain time. I had to do this. I had no control over my time. And I could be sitting there at work with nothing to do on a Wednesday for 4 hours because some meeting got canceled. But heaven forbid I leave the office and go run some errands. Nope. I had to sit there until 4:30, pretending I was working. Then I could sign out and then rush to do all my errands in the evening and the weekends with all the other punters who had to be stuck at work, right? So for me, wealth, it became controlling my time and my environment to get that freedom of choice, right? And that is a very different definition for every single person on the planet.
You know what it changed for me, if I can offer something up? There was a really poignant time, and I remember actually where I was, and my oldest, who's 16, was about 4 at the time. And I remember I think my numbers are right. It's pretty close to that. And I remember leaving Verizon. And when I left Verizon, I was making a real good living. I was one of the top guys at the center. I can say that. I mean, I went on trips to Hawaii. They paid for us. Like, I was one of the top there, and I loved my job. Like, it wasn't one of those things where I hated it. Everything was different. Sort of like in the marketing space. There's a new challenge and a new thing every single day, something else to study. Today it's Facebook, tomorrow it's Meta. Like we talked about Sandbox in the beginning, this virtual reality and AI stuff, right? Like all this stuff's changing. And I remember leaving my job and one of my friends saying to me, "Are you crazy?" And I was like, "What do you mean?" And they were like, "You're making well into 6 figures. You had a great job. Why would you leave that place?" And I remember it dawned on me. I was like, "Yeah, why would I do that? I must be crazy." And then I recapped my previous day. And I remember I was sitting at lunch with my daughter, who was 4 or 5 years old at the time. While everybody else was at work, I was spending 2 hours with her just talking about nonsense. And I thought to myself, that's the answer, right? Like when people say to me, "What time are you working tomorrow? What time are you starting?" I go, "We'll see. Depends on what the girls are doing, where they need to be." Like I might work until 2 a.m. because I started at 8:15 in the afternoon at night, right?
And you're excited and passionate with what you're working on.
Yep.
And you want to pump that out as soon as possible, right?
Yep, 100%. But I just remember that
totally
shift.
Yep.
That's interesting.
And then, so then we start to shift with things of like trading time for money, which Matt, you and I talked about before, right? And that's what I realized. And that's what my Morpheus at the time, the guy I was sitting beside, started to introduce to me and introduced me to people like Harv Eker and Rich Dad Poor Dad and all this. And this idea of trading time for money. But what if it was, because you can't get time back, right? I can always go make more money, but I can't make any more time. So what does your life start to look like? And this is the interesting thing with real estate professionals, which I know are a big part of your audience. Like most real estate professionals probably got into this industry, at least for one of the reasons being that, there's no ceiling on what you can make. So clearly they are drawn to making a lot of money and having that sort of abundance. But they actually, if they left some other, corporate job or cubicle farm or whatever, they may have less time now than they did, right? Because they're giving up all their weekends, they're giving up their evenings in a lot of cases, they're at the mercy of their clients at all times. And yet they've got insider trading information into the real estate investing game that, they would go arrest Martha Stewart and about again, if she had that kind of insider trading info. And all these real estate professionals are seeing this, they understand it. Yesterday, I interviewed for one of my private groups, one of my best buddies he's a real estate professional, and he's doing private lending. Like he's leveraging his real estate business in order to do different types of investment, real estate investment, private lending. And now that has created financial freedom for him. So he gets to choose when he works, with who he works with, if he needs to, take a break. Now he's got an ailing parent, so he knows he's going to have to scale down the business a little bit, right? Even though it's a super busy time up in our area, because he's got other priorities, and it's not his work that now dictates his time, right? And that's really then what I came to with. I shared the book with you when we talked last time, Cash Flow Quadrant. What if you could leverage your business to funnel money into investments to create financial freedom, but keep doing what you love?
Yep, exactly. Yeah, I was gonna say, one of the podcasts that we produce, it's been a while since the host has been on our show, but the show is called Agent Investor for that exact reason. He came at it from the investing side and ended up opening a brokerage because he saw it from the other ends. Like, hey, I built this amazing skill set of sitting across the table from a homeowner and talking about what I can offer them, but I can't help 99% of them. Maybe I should try to get into the game. And then you realize, why is everybody not doing this? Is it, like you said, Martha Stewart would get arrested all over again if she had the kind of information about companies you invest in that agents have about the market and the homes. Like, you can go in as an agent and you can offer, I can list your house. I could make you a cash offer through a network of investors. I could buy your house myself under certain circumstances. We could do a bridge. Like, you can go in there armed with a toolbox of different things to offer them that in most situations, like, you just couldn't get away with that range. And you certainly couldn't in the investment world get away with talking and getting really deep into the details of a company you wanted to buy. The same level agents can get into the details of a home they're going to buy.
Well, and you could even come to them and say, hey, I've got a team of people. Let's renovate. Let's raise the value of your house. Go try to purposely drive up the price of a stock before you sell it and see how that works for you, right?
Yeah,
but you can literally, but again, right? Like, so
only Elon Musk gets away with that in crypto.
That's true. Yeah. Exactly. And a few others that will remain nameless.
That's right.
You said it though, right? Like, the question that your colleague asked was, why isn't everybody doing this? Because most people don't believe that they deserve it. Going back to this whole idea of what I need versus what I want, and the mindset, and that they've been taught all their life, just work hard, keep your head down, right? I just make it, and then someday I'll get to retire and this. And so people are literally self-sabotaging themselves, and I see it all the time, right? I'm NLP certified, neuro-linguistic programming. That's what those things behind me on the wall are about, right? And we learn this all the time in neuro-linguistic programming, that like, you are a walking program, whether you know it or not, and your programming will be firing. And there's program for when things are going well, when things are going mediocre, and when the shit's hitting the fan. And you are when the shit's hitting the fan, you're gonna revert to that oldest programming that goes all the way back to being a little kid, unless you've built awareness about it, you know what to look for, and you have alternate programs that you can overlay and get to fire in those situations. Otherwise, you're going to go into autonomous mode, and the scarcity that we were taught as kids, the I don't deserve this, the shame and the guilt and all that is going to override. And and you see people are asking this all the time. Another year has passed. Are you in the same position that you were in last Thanksgiving? Because if you are, I promise you, it's because your programming is firing unconsciously in the background and keeping you in the same spot that you've always been, and probably will always be, unless you take some action around it. And as much as I coach people on, how to invest and all that, the mindset piece is number one. That's the first thing we always dig into, because I recognize I can teach you all the tips and strategies in the world. It ain't going to make a difference at the end of the day, just like it's not in the health and diet industry, right? Where we don't see people, there is not a epidemic of six-pack abs the last time I checked.
No, I would like to live in a country where there's an epidemic of six-pack abs. That sounds delightful.
Well,
I assume it's Croatia.
Yeah.
It's nowhere near here. Let's put it that way. I mean, believe me, I live in San Diego. There's still no epidemic of six-pack abs.
I think there's parts of India where they've all got six-pack abs, but there's a different reason
for that. Exactly. All right, let's because I want to be respectful of your time, so let's wind down. What's the type of person that should reach out to you? The type of person that you really feel like you can make a big impact in their life, and why? And obviously, how should they reach out?
So, first I'll start with the what you're not. If you're the kind of person that's just looking for your financial advisor to here, take my money and do whatever, and I'll see you in 30 years, then that's not for me. I'm looking for people who are sick and tired of what has been going on, are ready for change. understand that that's going to involve some learning, taking responsibility and accountability, because should be the only one managing your finances. That doesn't mean it has to be a full-time job, but you understand that there's going to be some work involved. There's going to be some learning. And I never tell people what to invest in. I'm teaching you how to fish. So that's what I'm looking to do. If you're ready to learn how to do this and be mentored by someone who has achieved success and help others achieve success, you understand that's going to take some time, that's going to take some energy, and it's going to take some money, then reach out. We can talk more. If I'm not a fit, I will tell you, because I want to work with clients that I love and adore, and they feel the same way. I'm not running a gym. I'm not looking for obligatory contracts. I want us to be looking forward to working together, not like, oh God, now I have a call with Matt again this week. No, that is not what I'm all about. Okay, so we are ready to make change. And people ask me all this time, how much money do you need to have? $1,000 you can get into investing, right? It's more of a willingness of, I'm ready to start to do what it takes, and I want to learn the right way. I want to learn from my successes and avoid my mistakes and start to grow my wealth.
Got it. That's good to know. So it's not that you have to have a certain net worth, that you have to be able to, like go out and buy a commercial property or multifamily right away or anything like that. So, okay. What's the best way?
Sandbox with $1,000 3 weeks ago, you'd be sitting at $3,000 today, right? So
that's right. What's the best way to reach out and connect?
Yeah, so email, in the US, obviously I have a Canadian number. So the best thing is probably email. You can find me on Facebook and LinkedIn and Instagram. I'll send you some links so you can include in like some show notes so people can just click and find me that way. But yeah, and my last name is spelled wrong just because I'm so bloody unique. I don't want to be mistaken for anyone else, right? Bogaert. But yeah, I'll send some links your way, Matt. So if anybody's got any questions or wants to find out more about this journey, we can do so. And you guys want to go deeper into this stuff. I know we didn't even get to talk about some crypto.
I know.
We'll let's do it again. Love these types of conversations. Love chatting with you guys and the types of topics you're bringing out there. So keep it up.
Yeah, I appreciate it. And then Gene, what's the best way for people to reach out and touch base with you?
Yeah, get on my calendar these days. If you get to genevolpe.com, there's a scheduling link for 30 minutes with me, and we can talk about your deepest fears if you want. Yeah. Well, whatever you want.
Yes, that's right. GeneVolpeTherapy.com. No, Gene is a marketing master. So if you'd like to take one piece of content like a video, split it up, slice and dice it, put it on social media, get more exposure that way. That's Gene's agency specialty. So get in touch with them about that. And then for myself, if you're interested in launching a podcast, you can reach out to me. Just go to pursuingresults.com. We work with a whole bunch of people that are real estate mortgage coaches, financial advisor coaches, like those sorts of people. So that's my deal. And then Greg is not here, but if you're interested in learning more about EXP and joining a virtual brokerage, so you're not paying things like office fees for an office that you basically figured out last year you don't need at all, and all of that stuff. So if you want to get into an environment, Brian, you talked about just building wealth while still doing the things that you do anyway. That's kind of why we jumped over to EXPs, because it allows you to do that. So it allows you to just keep being a real estate professional while building up stock options, having people kind of just drawn to the company and end up signing up under you. You make a cut of their commissions and those sorts of things. And then there's 5 or 6 other ways that you can also make money, and you can start socking away money, which is the hardest thing for a real estate professional to do, is to build long-term wealth. And so I think EXP is one of the best vehicles to do that. So if you want to talk to Greg about that, obviously Greg is not here, but his number is 925-915-1978. I know that because that phone number haunts my dreams, as any long-term listener will know. Greg has been saying that number on the air for 5.5 or 6 years, or however long we've been doing this. So anyway, Brian, thank you so much. I really, really appreciate your time. Thank you for your insight and your wisdom. Gene, you're as bald as ever. We appreciate and love you too. And as Greg would say, peace out, ninjas. We're gone.
Happy Thanksgiving, everybody.